Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you had a safe and enjoyable holiday season and you're ready to make it happen in 2022, because you know what? If you don't make it happen, someone else will. But it might as well be you. But remember this, it don't have to be you. It doesn't have to be you, but it ought to be you. So make it happen in 2022. So I want to talk to you. This podcast is coming out on Monday morning at 5 a.m. Something new I'm going to do starting with this episode right here. In the past, I released my podcast episodes on Friday mornings at 5 a.m. And sometimes there's a delay before it gets out on some of the platforms, but that's when it actually is released. And again, beginning with this episodes, all future episodes are going to be released on Mondays at 5 a.m. So hope you enjoy this episode. Today's episode, I'm kicking off the new year with a full dose of leadership truth. And those of you who know what I'm talking about know that leadership truth is kind of like a surgeon's scalpel. It might hurt, but it's meant to help. So the title of today's episode is Attention Leaders. The toxic people on your team are damaging your integrity. And again, this is leadership truth. Some of you that have been listening to me or you follow me on social media, you know that when I talk about leadership truth, I often kind of give you a definition of what that is. What leadership truth is kind of like a surgeon's scalpel. It may hurt, but it's meant to help. And the reason I give you that warning is because whenever I'm talking about leadership truth, I'm talking straight talk. I'm talking directly to you. In this episode, specifically, if you are a leader, if you're a boss, if you're a manager, whatever that word is you guys use on your team, if someone reports to you, this is for you. I don't intend to offend you or turn you away, but I do intend to talk straight. And for those of you who are not in a leadership position, you're going to understand this message too. And hopefully, if one day you decide to become a leader, a formal authority leader, you'll remember this lesson and you'll understand what toxic team members do to a team and what they do to a leader. So I remember the words I read on a sign as a teenager, and they may ring true as you listen to this episode. And those words were, if the truth hurts, it probably should. Because when you talk truth, sometimes it stings. But again, this truth's intended to help. But if this episode stings a bit, you use that discomfort as a catalyst for growth. Don't choose to be offended. You see, I can't offend you. You can choose to be offended by something I say, but there's nothing I can do to actually offend you. That's a choice that people make, and people are making those choices every single day. All you got to do is look on social media, turn on the TV, and you see people all over the world choosing to be offended about little tiny things and big, huge things. And then you see other people living in the same world, and they don't even notice those things. It's because being offended is a choice. So again, I'm not here to offend you today, but I am here to talk straight. In 2022, I'm probably going to do quite a few leadership truth episodes. Hopefully people are going to like those episodes. Either way, I'm going to do them anyway. All right. So let's talk about what does it mean to have a toxic team member. Before I go into today's lesson, what is a toxic team member? Toxic team members cause people not to want to be on the team. That's what a toxic team member is. When you have to come to work and work with a toxic team member, you don't want to do that. You'd rather be on a different team, but most importantly, you'd usually want the toxic team member to be removed from your team. Toxic team members like to take credit from other people. They like to blame other people. They like to point the finger without a doubt when they're blaming other people. And most of the time, The rest of the team simply does not like these people. Toxic people lower the morale on a team. That's what they do. They decrease teamwork, they decrease morale, they decrease productivity. A lot of times they decrease quality. All kind of things toxic people decrease. What does it do to you as a person? Like I said, it makes you not want to be on the team. What does it do to the leader of that team? It diminishes and decreases their integrity. And that's what this episode is going to be about. When I start really talking leadership truth, I'm going to be talking to leaders of people, people who are the boss, who are people who are on the org chart with people reporting to them. Whatever word you want to use, leader, manager, boss, you just need to understand it's the people who have the authority to remove the toxic person from the team or to develop that person, to invest in the development of that person and help them move beyond being a toxic team member, help them grow. So that's who this talk's actually going to be to. And you don't need a lot of explanation about who is a toxic team member. You already know. So leaders, when you allow a toxic negative person to remain on your team, you'll find the best people will leave because you're allowing the worst to stay. And now these people, the best people on your team, they may not leave immediately, but they will leave eventually. And what you need to know as a leader is the clock is ticking. If you've got toxic people on your team and you got some rock stars still on your team, those rock stars are going to move on at some point. They may move on within the same company, they may move to a completely different company, or they may just get frustrated and decide they don't want to work for any boss, and they may start their own business. They start their own company. But I promise you, Mr. or Miss Leader, again, I'm not trying to offend you, but I'm trying to tell you some truth, to set some things on your perimeter of awareness you may not be aware of. When you allow toxic people to remain on your team, most likely the best people on your team, the ones who could actually help you move your organization forward, are going to leave your team. Reed Hastings said this, and I love this quote. He says, "Don't tolerate brilliant jerks. The cost of teamwork is too high." Don't tolerate brilliant jerks. The cost of teamwork is too high. These brilliant jerks are toxic people. So another way to say what Reed's saying is, Mr. or Miss Leader, don't tolerate toxic people, no matter how smart they are, because they're demoralizing your team. And again, what this real lesson is about today is they're diminishing your integrity, Mr. or Miss Leader. I don't know any leader who would stand up and raise their hand and say, I try to lead in a way that my goal is to diminish my integrity. Most leaders are not doing this on purpose. Some leaders haven't even thought about what their decisions and their choices related to toxic people remaining on their team, what it's actually doing to their character, especially if they don't even study leadership. They don't study leadership development, personal growth. They don't even understand the impact of character on their ability to lead. So the result, those who would and could truly help you and your team perform at a higher level will be helping another team perform at a higher level if the leader doesn't get it right. A lot of times you'll hear leaders say, man, whenever we get a good one, we just can't keep them. They won't stay. I don't know if that's because there's a toxic person on the team, but very likely there is a toxic person on the team. And if it's not somebody who literally is on the team, then that toxic person is the leader. And the leader is the one who's running off the good and great people. But ultimately, that's the case in any case. Even if there's team members who are causing other team members to leave, the leader is responsible for the team. So whatever's going on the team, directly, the leader is always indirectly responsible. Or either they're not leading, they're just managing the people. And in that case, they're still responsible. They just have zero clue that they are responsible. So when you have the toxic people remain behind, you and those who remain with you will continue to have the privilege of dealing with toxic individuals and all of the problems, frustrations, and stress they cause on a daily basis. That's not a fact. That's an opinion. If you've been on a team with a toxic person, you already know it. When a leader chooses to leave that toxic person on the team, allows them to contaminate the team, everyone else, including the leader and other leaders within the organization, have to deal with the problems, the frustrations, the stress caused by the toxic people. And again, that's a fact. That's not an opinion. But this may surprise the leaders out there who are listening. If you're a formal authority boss, if you're on the org chart, the toxic people who are on your team reporting to you, everybody knows who they are. It's no secret. They also know who the leader is that allows them to remain on the team and contaminate the team. That's no secret either. And again, I'm not trying to hurt you with my words. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you think at a different level, because toxic people do so much damage to the leader's integrity. Not just one leader, the one they report to, all the leaders in the entire organization. Because see, when one leader does the wrong thing and leaves a toxic person on the team, what you'll see, and you already know this too, you can validate it for yourself. You'll see that the other leaders, you may go talk to another leader, and first thing they do, start covering up for the leader who's leaving the toxic person on the team, or they start trying to justify it in some way. As soon as another leader starts justifying a leader's behavior, bad behavior in this case, they just tied their character, their integrity to the bad leader. And in some organizations, it's the top leader who won't remove a toxic person. And then all the other leaders in the organization, if they want to have a good relationship with that leader who won't make the right decisions, they got to support that leader. And so how do they support the leaders? They go around and they justify it. If they don't justify it and they start talking bad about the leader who won't do the right thing, what's crazy is sometimes this is the person who loses their job. Not the toxic person, just the one who speaks up about the toxic person. And when that happens, that's just another indicator you got poor quality leadership on the org chart. It's that simple. So what you got to know is, as a leader, the toxic person is nothing more than a reflection of your character. That might hurt a little, because there's no doubt the toxic person's character reflects who they are. But if you're allowing that toxic person to be on your team, it reflects who you are. That's what a toxic person does to their leader, to their boss. Their character reflects poorly on the boss's character, because the boss's character says, this is okay. I'm okay with someone contaminating my team. I'm okay with someone being on my team who causes lots of problems, who causes lots of frustrations, who causes lots of stress. I'm okay with that. Max Story ain't okay with that, but there's a lot of leaders out there who are okay with that. So these people, Mr. and Miss Leader, they're only on your team because you allow them to be on your team. And everybody knows it. There's no secret. You may not be responsible for their behavior again and their character, but you're always responsible for allowing them to be a part of your team. And every other leader who justifies it, they're responsible for their behavior of justifying it. And everybody knows it. That's why, as a high impact leader, you can't allow this to happen. You're damaging the entire leadership integrity of the organization. The higher up the org chart you are, the more damage you're causing the organization by allowing toxic people to remain. If I took over a team, that's one of the first things I'm going to do. I'm going to change people, meaning I'm going to grow and develop them. If they remain toxic after that, I'm going to change them, meaning I'm going to remove them from my team because I know what they're doing to my team. But I'm not going to do this in secret. I'm going to be fully transparent. If I were you and you're a formal authority leader and you're listening to this message and it makes sense to you, I would go in and I would play this for my entire team. I'd let them hear this podcast. And I'd say, I don't want to change you, meaning I don't want to get rid of you if you're toxic to this team. But you know who you are, and everybody else knows who you are. And I'm telling you today, I'm not going to let you damage my integrity any longer. I'm going to do something about it. So I'd communicate and I'd broadcast that to everybody, and then I would do something about it. First thing I'd do is I'd go find these toxic people and I'd have a talk with them. Make sure they understood they had some choices to make. They want to keep their job. They need to start growing and learning and developing and being a high impact team player. And if they don't know how, I'm going to make sure I share some information, some content with them, get them some training, take them through book studies, whatever it is I got to do to be a high impact leader. I'm going to tell them I'm going to do that. But I'm going to make sure they understand they have to do their part. And if they choose to fire themselves because they don't want to do it, they're welcome to do that. But I'm not going to fire them. They can choose to fire themselves, and I'll carry out their decision. But I really actually want them to stay on the team. But that's not up to me. That's up to them. And by the way, this is another important thing, Mr. and Miss Leader. And again, I'm just talking straight. There's people on your team that would love to talk straight to you, but they don't have the courage. The reason they don't have the courage is because they don't have options. I'm going to do probably my next podcast. I'm going to talk about those people, why they don't have options, and the damage the toxic people do to those people and choices they should be making. But let's get back to this one. Those who remain with you, again, if you allow a toxic person to be on your team, those who remain with you, not the best people and the brightest, remember, they're going to leave. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. But those who remain, those without options to leave, who have to stay and deal with the toxic person every day and work under your leadership, they're not going to respect you as a leader. That might sting a little, but it's the truth. They know you aren't willing to do what's best for the team. Your behavior, your failure to act every day that toxic person remains on your team is evidence. Everybody sees it. They know you won't make the tough decision. They know you are avoiding dealing with it. They know you aren't a good leader, much less a great leader. Everyone knows that. And again, if you're not a leader today, but maybe one day you want to be, formally on the org chart, don't forget this lesson. Don't forget this lesson. So these folks who don't respect you, who stay behind, who don't leave because they don't have options, Mr. Miss Leader, I want you to know something. These people talk about you behind your back, most likely on a daily basis. Most likely everyone on your team is talking about you negatively. And they're not gonna stop as long as you allow toxic people to contaminate the team. Their team. It's not only your team, Mr. and Miss Leader. It's everybody who is on the team. It's their team too. And when you allow a toxic person to remain on the team and you don't have to, you're obviously disrespecting your team. Something else all these people know about their leader, the one who won't remove a toxic team member from the team. And I'm going to talk directly again to Mr. or Miss Leader. They all know you are a weak leader and wish you would do the right thing or be fired. The reason they want you to be fired is because you won't do the right thing. They're hoping that maybe if you're fired, whoever takes your place that they will do the right thing and get rid of the toxic team member. They would rather you do it and stay, but if you're not going to do it, they would rather that you didn't have a job and give somebody else an opportunity to lead at a higher level. Or maybe they could take your place and they would do the right thing. But if you're the owner of a company, you're not just on the org chart. If you're the owner, the people on the team know you're the owner and you're not doing the right thing. You're allowing toxic people to be a part of the organization. They know their best chance is to change their work address because you're not likely to change your work address, and you don't have to change. So that means for them to get away from the problems, the frustration, the stress caused by toxic people, these people have to leave. And again, that's what the best people are going to do. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Because you get to decide what's best for you, but they get to decide what's best for them. Again, this is people with options. People on your team without many options, they got to deal with a toxic team member. I'm going to say it over and over because I've seen it my entire life working in organizations. I see it in the organizations I support. I hear about the toxic people because just like I said earlier, the people who are on the team with the toxic people, they talk. They talk about the leader and they talk about the toxic people constantly. You got to know, regardless of your position, title, or rank, your character is personal, but it's not private. Your choices, your behavior, in this case, your choice to keep a toxic person on your team, your choices are open windows, and the rest of the world is standing on the outside looking in. And what do they see? Your character. Your choice is nothing. Your choices are nothing more than a magnifying glass to show the world your character. Now, there's a lot of people who can't articulate all the things I'm telling you. That's why I'm telling you these things. But they can see it and they can feel it. I'm going to say it in a slightly different way. Your choices serve as an open window revealing your character and your values, and everyone is on the outside looking in. You can't hide it. It's personal, but it's not private. Just like the toxic person's character. It's personal, but it's not private. Everyone sees who they are. That applies to every person on the planet. So again, when you allow toxic team members to contaminate your team, you lose integrity with all of those who are watching and all of those they are talking to about you. And I had to work with one of these guys one time. I had to work with this guy had been in the company 20, 30 years. He was a manager. He was extremely toxic. No one liked dealing with this guy. He was very irritable. He liked to scream and holler and cuss and all that kind of stuff just when somebody asked him a simple question. He liked to belittle people, and everyone else in the company had to deal with him. They didn't respect him, and I should say we, because I was one of them, and we didn't respect the entire org chart above that person who allowed it to happen. That's why a lot of companies, there's low trust. This issue I'm telling you about right now, just this one thing creates tremendous distrust in an organization at all levels. Whenever leaders have to cover up and justify poor behavior, poor choices of other leaders, the result is distrust. Organizations with a high level of distrust, they don't operate efficiently or effectively. So again, you've shown your team who you are and what you value when you allow a toxic person to remain. It's clear to your team that you definitely don't value them, what they have to deal with every day, and that you're a great example of how not to lead. You see, bad leaders do one good thing. Actually, they do a lot of great things. They teach us how not to be. So if you're on a team and your leader's allowing toxic team members to be on the team, take that lesson away. If you're a formal authority leader today, or you want to be one in the future, take that lesson away. Don't be that kind of leader. Do not tolerate toxic people. So high impact leaders have high impact followers who respect them. That's who you want to be. You won't be that person if you allow a toxic team member to remain on your team. So don't miss that, Mr. or Miss Leader. If there's toxic people on your team, you're not seen as a high impact leader. And your team doesn't respect you. It doesn't matter what they say to your face. They don't respect you if you're leaving a toxic team member on the team. Most people, they're not going to say anything about it to you. they're going to say plenty about it to others. Low impact leaders have low impact followers who despise them. So high impact leaders have high impact followers who respect them. Low impact leaders have low impact followers who despise them. So when I break that down for you, what I mean is low impact leaders have low impact followers because the followers do not have options. If they did, they wouldn't follow a low impact leader. So this is some leadership truth for you. If you're not on the org chart, but you following a low impact leader, a leader you don't respect, there's only one reason that you have to follow that leader, because you don't have options. Develop yourself, grow yourself, create some options so you can fire that leader and go hire you a better leader. But that's next week's episode. So you can try to defend your actions if you're the leader who's allowing toxic people to remain, but you're not fooling anyone but yourself. You've got to know that. That's why I'm doing this podcast. I hope there's some people listening who are hearing some stuff that they haven't really thought about, and they take action on it. Because if you're guilty of allowing a toxic person to remain on your team, your hollow words are overshadowed on a daily basis by your actions and your lack of actions. All the stuff you tell your team about the toxic person, they're hollow. Your team already knows you're a weak leader. Whether you know it or not, they know it. They also know if you have a track record of this behavior and it's nothing new. If you've been allowing this to happen for a long time, over and over, repeatedly, I don't see how your team functions very efficiently or very effectively, because there's so much distrust. You may have not ever seen it when there's a lot of high trust, if that's the way you lead. So you think this is just normal. It's not normal. It's just normal for you. But what if you report to one of these weak, insecure, low impact leaders with poor character? Again, this is going to be next week's episode, but I'm going to kind of lead into it right here at the end. If you report to one of these weak leaders who allow toxic team members to contaminate your team, move on as soon as possible. There are opportunities everywhere right now. The job hunter has the advantage. You'll get an opportunity to report to a better leader and work with a better team. You'll most likely get a raise. If you have the courage to step out, you've got some competency and you've got the character to maximize that competency. You're probably going to get a raise if you'll leave behind the toxic leader who's allowing toxic people to be on their team. Because don't forget, the toxic person is only there because the leader allowed him to be there, which means the leader is actually the most toxic person on the team. So if you've been developing yourself in advance, you're going to be prepared for that opportunity. Toxic team members with a low degree of character and with values that conflict with yours are much more likely to try and bring you down to their level rather than choose to join you at a higher level. So stop hoping and wishing your leader will do the right thing if you're on that team with a toxic person. They aren't interested. The leader's not interested. If they were, they would have already done the right thing. And again, if you are the leader, your team knows exactly what I'm telling them right now. I'm just validating what they already know. If your leader won't terminate toxic team members, it's because they value those toxic team members at some level. No other reason they would be on the team. That's not a leader you want to report to any longer than you have to. So stop waiting for them to do what should be done. You do the right thing. Make your life better as soon as possible. You deserve a better leader. So intentionally develop yourself so you'll have more options. Then act on those options. And I'll tell you this, don't leave a job, go to a job. So if you don't know where to start, you read books, you listen to podcasts like this, you watch videos. I've got, I think, 300 videos on my YouTube channel. Lots of free stuff. Got 260 something episodes here on my podcast channel. I've got books. They only cost $18. You could get one nugget out of one of those books that's worth $18. Throw the rest of the book away. I hope you enjoyed this Leadership Truth episode. I really hope you're not one of the leaders who have toxic team members on your team. And if you do, I hope you heard enough today to do something about it, because your team is counting on you. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.